So what brings you guys to Saskatoon today?
We are actually here with the Knoper Science Communications Workshop that Cami had a big part in organizing.
Oh. Well, you know what? Part in organizing. I don't want to overstate that because, you know, there were a lot of people that were involved in that, but it's really good. And so there was Michelle, myself, and Kevin Folta, who's from the university down in Florida. So we're really excited. We had a really great day and good discussions. And
lots of conversations about how to more effectively communicate not only agriculture but science. Yeah. And really trying to help build the credibility of science in society.
So, and why do you guys think that that's important right now?
Well, I think communicating agriculture and science is absolutely critical if we want to be able to preserve our right to conduct science and farm as we best see fit. The reality is that we are going to lose our permission, our public permission, if you will, to be able to operate in ways that we think are best for the land and the animals in agriculture, as well as what science is doing in labs, if we can't help the majority of the population understand. When less than 2% of the population is on a farm, it's a real challenge for the minority to communicate to the majority. So we try to give them some tips and tools today on how to do that more effectively, both from science and farming.
Yeah, and I mean, it's all about mobilizing whatever knowledge you have as an individual, and I think that's what we came to the conclusion today, that you come from a value-based perspective. So no matter what your area of expertise is, like Michelle has different expertise than I do, and then all of us in that room probably had various levels and different levels of expertise and knowledge. And I think it's just mobilizing it in a way that is consumable and is value add to the individual that you're actually talking to. So it was an idea generation exercise today, I think.
How do we go about doing that?
Well, I think it's a very nuanced thing, and I'm sure that Michelle would agree with me. It depends on your audience. It depends on who you are and what your value add in your connection is. I'm not a farmer, and I'm not a scientist. I'm a social scientist, but I have a deep, abiding interest in how science is communicated. So I come at it from my own place with my own voice, and I think that that's the challenge. I think that's what we have to do. We have to rise to whatever makes sense for us. We have to do it, like Michelle said today, with passion. I think that's a big part of it, and it has to come from an authentic space. You know, I always say when I talk to people about how you have your ag and food conversations, I say you have to be accurate, you have to be accountable, and you have to be authentic, and that's the important pieces there.
Yeah, and to me, if I could share one message with your producers that are out there watching, it would be to really try to understand what people's hot buttons are and to leverage those hot buttons. Because the reality is if we lead with research and science as a farmer or a scientist, that we're likely to turn people off. Because so often we spend time talking about all of the research that we have, and of course we're doing the right thing because we can't make money if we don't, and all those sorts of things, when in reality we miss the human connection. And to me, the real secret is that hot button, identifying really what is critical to a person, what a person's passion is. So as a mom, I spend a lot of time talking about the fact that I'm a mom of a young daughter, and what it means to me when I go to the store and make food choices, and how that's critical to me as a mother, and then also as a woman, you know, just talking to other people as a girlfriend versus just a farmer or agriculturalists. At the end of the day, we all are humans, and we win when we relate to other folks as humans. Not as farmers, not as agriculturalists, not as science, but as humans. And the hot button is really the secret to doing that. And I think when you look at some of the successful conversations that are happening around agriculture, around farm and food, you can clearly identify that there's hot buttons that are being shared and that are being connected.
Right, and let's just step back a bit. A hot button isn't just a negative issue.
No, a hot button can certainly be a positive issue. For example, and I'm sure there's many of you that will really appreciate this out here, but I like to talk about cute shoes, and I put pictures up about cute shoes, and both of you I know have great appreciation for that, whereas most people watching probably have no appreciation, and that's perfectly fine, but what that does is humanizes me to other people and allows them to relate to me, because there's a lot of women out there that like cute shoes. So I get comments on my Facebook when I start putting up pictures of cute shoes or start talking about it on Twitter. And so what that does is allow people to start building trust and credibility in me. And yes, you can really build trust through shoes. I know that's hard to believe, but it can be done. And so hot buttons absolutely can be positive. They can be negative as well, but positive hot buttons are one of the ways that I think we can leverage the trust that people have in farmers today.
Yeah, and I think credibility comes from a really nuanced space too, because our conversations with people and around ag and science don't have to start with conversations about ag and science.
Yes.
They can start with completely different topics. It's about finding that common ground and really relating to people and building relationships there. And these are conversations that can happen in your hockey rink, in your schools with the other parents, on the football field, anywhere, like around the campfire, bonfire, you know, in the roping arena, wherever your space is, your social space is. These are places where you can engage with people. And it doesn't necessarily have to be at the front of it about food, ag, or science. It can start out as shoes or something else too.
Yeah, so probably a lot of urban knights and rural people have this kind of disconnect. They feel like they have nothing in common. So when I walk into a room and sit down next to somebody that's been from the city all their life, how do I start that conversation? Or find out what their hot buttons are?
I think just reaching your hand across the plate or across the table, if you will, and shaking their hand and introducing yourself. And ask them about their family, ask them about the things that you enjoy talking about. Again, it's not about leading with the fact that we have all these major food issues that we have to talk about, or leading about farming issues. It's about connecting as a human. So it's really just about having a conversation, asking questions, and then sometimes stopping and listening to the answers, even when you don't like what the other person is saying.
Yes, yes. More ask than tell. That's what I always say too.
Yep, you have 2 ears and 1 tongue for a reason.
That's good.
That's very true. Yeah. I guess what are some of the things that we're doing wrong right now? Or are there places we can improve? Maybe that's a better way to say it.
In agriculture?
Yeah, in ag and science communications.
I can take a crack at that one. How about we be proactive instead of reactive? How about we play offense instead of defense? That's how you put points on the board, whether it's hockey or basketball, right? Yeah. So it's about not waiting to respond to the negative message about biotechnology or waiting to respond to the next nasty animal welfare video that's out there. It's about taking the time and investing time as a business practice to talk about what you do in farming, because it's a novelty to the majority of the population. They don't know what it's like to drive a combine down the road. They don't know what it's like to work with land and animals. And many times they don't understand that this is certainly a part of who we are, but it's also a part of our next generation. It's part of our family values. So taking that time to share your farm story today, not tomorrow, helps protect that future.
It's kind of being anticipatory. We use that word in academia, but really it's upfront thinking, proactive thinking in any strategic or issues management kind of approach to things. But really, it's having those conversations or telling the stories in advance, you know, because I think that has been a problem. I think we've been largely reactive, and then that leaves us open to more criticism. The other thing too is if you're passive and you're sitting back in the crowd and you're not saying anything, that also leaves room for other individuals, maybe with ulterior motives, to come in and fill in that space. So we should be in there. We should be active in that space.
But how do we make our story interesting to people that have no idea, like you said, about agriculture?
Well, food is incredibly hot today. You know, no pun intended. But when you look at biotechnology, you look at food safety, you look at local versus national, you look at conventional versus organic, animal welfare, there's a myriad of issues that are out there. People are very interested in what we do. Farming is still held as one of the most highly respected occupations that there is. So I think the combination of that trust and food being so hot, that it actually is pretty simple for us to gather people's interest, whether it would be sharing a picture on Facebook, whether it would be tweeting out what you're doing on the farm that day, posting a photo on Instagram, being really brave, picking up your phone and shooting a video, or as Cami said, talking to somebody at the local hockey rink. When you're out with your friends having a beer, talk to them about why you care what you do. Passion acts as a magnet. And if we wouldn't put a bushel basket over our passion, we'd probably have a lot more people understand how deeply we care about this.
Good points. I've nothing to add to that. That's really great.
Okay, and are you guys both pretty positive about where the industry is going right now?
I always see the glass half full. I think that's
a very
good way to
perspective,
approach life, because I mean, we're always going to run into things. We're going to run into critics of approaches, science and farming and so forth. But if we don't continue to engage and tell our stories, then we're missing out. We're missing an opportunity. And that's another thing too. Why the stories work so well is because as humans, For all of time, that's what we've done. We are storytellers. We send stories down through generations. It's a part of our social makeup. It's how we interact with one another. So stories are really important, and they're meaningful. And when they come from a great space, they can have great impact. So I think we have to continue to tell those stories.